Welcome. Today we are going to go over some more of the commandments because they do pertain to today's world. I know a lot of Christianity says it doesn't matter. It just don't matter. Those laws are done away with. Can anyone keep the law? But they're also usually the ones that are not on the Sabbath day. They're not keeping the Sabbath day. They're not keeping the wills and the ways of Yahweh. They're not doing what Yahweh says to do. So, of course, they have to say something to condone their actions, right? I can keep Sabbath any day. I can do this any day. And I can do... But if we read our scriptures, we find out you can't do it your way. You can't make the bull. You can't make the cow. You can't make the altar. As we see with Cain and Abel. You can't even bring the sacrifice that you want to bring. And when we read more of the scriptures, not to bring something blemished, not to bring something that isn't set apart, not to bring something perfect, then how can we be unperfect and come as you are and all the nonsense and baloney, get it, that we hear and we see in a lot of this churchianity, and even in the Torah community? If we're not careful, we have a lot of things happening that is not scripture. It's not of scripture. It's not based in the scriptures. That's why we have to know the transgression. If we don't know the law, if we don't know the instructions, then how do we know what that means to transgress it? Let's go on. Do not use olive oil in the grain offering. A lot of these are really simple, but we have to know them. We have to go over them to know them, right? Do not use frankincense in the grain offering of jealousy. Do not make substitutes for any vowed offerings. Do not dedicate the firstborn of an animal, since it already belongs to Yahweh and must be given to the priest. No one is to dedicate the firstborn of an animal, since the firstborn already belongs to Yahweh, whether it's from the herd or from the flock. It is Yahweh's. Do not redeem the firstborn of clean animals, since they belong to Yahweh and must be given to the priest. Do not redeem the tithes. They belong to Yahweh and must be given to the priest. So if we're not careful, we're giving money to wolves. We're giving things that do not belong to them. Do not sell dedicated property. It belongs to Yahweh and must be given to the priest. When the field is released in the Jubilee, it will become holy, set apart to Yahweh. Like a devoted field, it will become the property of the priest. Do not redeem dedicated property after specified time. It belongs to Yahweh and must be given to the priest. Do not sever the head of a bird offered as a sin offering. Do not work with a dedicated animal. All the firstborn males that come from your herd and your flock must be sanctified and set apart to Yahweh, your Father. You must not work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. A lot of these are real easy, simplified. Read it and do it, or read it and don't do it, right? Do not shear the dedicated animal. Do not offer the Passover lamb with leaven. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, nor shall the sacrifice of the Passover feast be left until morning. A lot of these people, and Michael Rood and all these, are turning the Passover into something that we're going to make money off of. We're going to go and invite a bunch of people and sit down and eat, and that's not what is appointed. That's not the Moedim. That's not what it's even about. It's about Yahweh and about the Passover, knowing what happened there. Do not allow the sacrificial fat of the Passover lamb to remain overnight. Do not allow the meat of the Passover lamb to remain overnight. And you must not let nothing of it remain until the morning, but that which remains of it until morning you must burn with fire. Do not leave any part of the additional offering overnight. Do not allow any part of the second Passover lamb to remain overnight. Do not leave any part of the Thanksgiving offering until morning. And this isn't your Thanksgiving dinner meal. This is what is appointed, right? We have to be careful because a lot of things stem off of Scripture and stem off the true church, the true assembly, and ends up something totally different as we see in churchianity today. Do not leave any part of the Thanksgiving offering till morning. And when you offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving to Yahweh, offer that it may be acceptable for you. It must be eaten that same day. You shall leave none of it until morning. I am Yahweh. Do not break any bones of the Passover lamb. We see Passover shanks and Passover cuts, and we're not supposed to break any of its limbs, any part of it. It must be eaten inside one house. Take none of the meat outside of the house, neither shall you break any of its bones. Do not break any bones of the second Passover lamb. Do not remove the meat of the Passover lamb from the house where it is eaten. Do not bake the remainder of the grain offering with leaven. Do not eat the Passover lamb raw or boiled. Don't you think the Passover is pretty important? We're seeing all these instructions given to us about how to do it and not to do it. No stranger or hired servant may eat of the Passover lamb. So how can we go invite everybody to come and have the Passover, and all these people jumping on it and making it another churchianity menu to come and let's eat and be happy and be merry? And that's not what he says to do. No stranger or hired servant may eat of the Passover lamb. A foreigner and a hired servant may not eat of it. We can't invite the church janitor to come eat, and he's just pagan as can be. No uncircumcised person may eat of the Passover lamb. Why? Because you're supposed to repent and do the will and the will of Yahweh before you even come into the covenant, right? You can't be a part of the family if you're not a part of the family. No one who has fallen away becomes a stranger may eat of the Passover lamb. Exodus 12:43. And Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. No stranger is to eat of it. Do not eat of the holy offerings while unclean. Do not eat any meat of the consecrated offering that touches anything unclean. Do not eat of the sacrifices which remain on the third day. They must be burned. Sacrifices remaining on the third day will not be accepted by Yahweh. So what does that tell you? If meat's 3 days old, we probably shouldn't be eating it, right? No one outside the priest's family may eat of the holy offerings. No stranger or hired worker may eat of the holy offerings. A lot of this is really just self-explanatory, but if we haven't heard it, we don't know it. No uncircumcised person may eat of the holy offerings. The priest must not eat of the holy offerings while unclean. The daughter of the priest who is married is a non-priest must not eat of holy offerings. Whatever man of the descendants of Aaron who is a leper, Leviticus 22:4, shall not eat of the holy offerings until he is clean. He will also be unclean if he becomes polluted by touching a corpse, or if he has an emission of semen. Pretty simple things there. But if the priest's daughter becomes a widowed or divorcee and has no child and has returned to her father's house as in her youth, she may eat her father's food, but no unauthorized person may eat of it. Do not eat the grain offering which the priest himself offers. Every grain offering of a priest shall be burned completely. It must not be eaten. Do not eat the sin offering whose blood is sprinkled on the inner altar. But no sin offering whose blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place shall be eaten. It must be burned completely in the fire. See also Leviticus 4:11-12. Do not eat any abominable thing, whether unclean food or blemished offerings. You must not eat any abominable thing. Deuteronomy 14:3. Now this is also directing us to find out what is an abominable. Because the churchianity and people will tell you, oh, that means, garbage. That means this. What is on the menu according to Yahweh? Anything else, mice, chicken, abominable. Chicken soup, not on the menu. Do not eat the second tithe of grain except Yahweh's feast at the house of Yahweh. You must not eat the tithe of your grain, new wine, and oil, or the firstborn of your herds and flocks, or whatever you have vowed to give, or your freewill offerings, or special gifts in your own cities. Do not drink the second tithe of wine except at Yahweh's feast at the house of Yahweh. You must not eat the tithe of your grain, new wine, or oil, or firstborn of your herds and flocks, or whatever you have vowed to give, are your free will offerings or special gifts in your own cities. Deuteronomy 12:17 and 18. Do not eat the second tithe of oil except at Yahweh's feast of the house of Yahweh. Do not eat the feast sacrifices except Yahweh's feast at the house of Yahweh. We can't just go and do the feast his way when it's his feast. The priest must not eat the tithes except at Yahweh's feast at the house of Yahweh. The priest must not eat the meat of the burnt offering at all. But first he shall wash its entrails and its legs with water. Then the priest shall burn all on the altar as a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to Yahweh. The meat from any of the sacrifices must not be eaten before the blood has been sprinkled on the altar. Deuteronomy 12 and 27. The priest must not eat of the tithes of holy offerings except at the holy place, the house of Yahweh. Must not eat of the tithes. How can you eat the tithes? See, the church Andy tells you that's money, but it's talking about food. No stranger may eat of the holy offering. There's your tithes and offering. Learn about what the word is saying. What so saith Yahweh. Do not remove the tithe of produce while unclean. I have not eaten the tithe in reverence to any god. Nor have I removed the tithe while I was unclean, nor have I offered any of the tithe to the dead. I have obeyed Yahweh my Father, have done everything you have commanded me. Deuteronomy 26 and 14. Do not eat of the tithe in honor of the dead. Do not eat of the tithe in honor of any god. No unauthorized person may eat of the holy offerings. So how can you take this money and go buy pork chops and say that was anything good? People give their money and they say, oh, that's tithes and offering, and then goes and buys some unclean thing or does unclean things with it. Who's responsible? Probably everybody involved, from the person who gave it to them to the person doing it, to the person lying to tell them they owe that. Again, if we do the will of Yahweh, if we learn, if not, we're stuck with, we might put money in the plate and that money goes to the service. Even if I eat it, no unauthorized person may eat of the set-apart offerings. If anyone eats a holy offering by mistake, he must make restitution for the priest for the offering and add a fifth of the value to it. David came and ate what? And what was he supposed to do? Just what it says, right? Do not delay to pay the tithes and offerings to Yahweh at the house of Yahweh. You shall not delay to offer the first of your ripe produce, or of your vineyard, or the firstborn of your sons, you shall offer to me. So say the Yahweh. Exodus 22 and 29. Next time they tell you to put something in the plate, go throw something off the vineyard. Give them a watermelon and see what they say. Oh, no, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? It's much easier. We didn't say nothing about much easier. It says what the tithes and offerings are. So stop being wicked and a wolf and say you just need money to pay the bills. Don't call the tithe an offering, because that's not right. Do not delay to pay vows to Yahweh at the house of Yahweh. If you make a vow to Yahweh, you must not delay to pay it. For Yahweh your Father will certainly demand of it you, and you will be guilty of sin. It's sin if you say you're going to make a vow and you don't do it. Do not appear before Yahweh at his feast, the house of Yahweh, empty-handed, without an offering. 3 times a year all your males shall appear in front of Yahweh your Father at the place he will choose, at the feast of unleavened bread, at the feast of weeks, and at the feast of tabernacles, and they must not appear in front of Yahweh empty-handed. You wouldn't go to a party empty-handed, would you? You don't go to church empty-handed, do you? So why would you come on a feast day before Yahweh empty-handed? Every man shall give as he is capable of giving in proportion to the blessing of Yahweh your Father has given you. Do not break vows and oaths to Yahweh. Numbers 30 and 2. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh, or vows an oath to bind himself to some pledge, he shall not break his word. He must do everything he said he would do. That's why it's important we don't just roll stuff off of our lips that we're going to do something, and then we know we're not going to do it before it comes out of our mouth. A priest must not marry a woman who is a harlot. They must not marry women defiled by harlotry, nor women who have divorced, separated themselves from their husbands, for the priest is holy to Yahweh. A priest must not marry a woman who refuses to repent to God worship. They must not marry women defiled by harlotry, nor women who have divorced, separated themselves from their husbands, for the priest is set apart to Yahweh. A priest must not marry a woman divorced herself from the lawful husband. Leviticus 21:7. They must not marry women defiled by harlotry, nor women who have divorced, separated themselves from their husbands, for the priest is set apart to Yahweh. The high priest must not marry a God worshipper. Really simple, right? He must not marry a woman who is a God worshipper, nor a woman who has divorced, separated herself from her husband, nor a woman defiled through harlotry. But he shall marry a virgin of his own people of the house of Yahweh as his wife. The high priest must not marry a woman defiled by harlotry or God worship. Leviticus 21:14. Priests must not allow their hair. And Moshe said to Aaron and to his sons, Eleazar, do not let your hair grow long, nor tear your clothes, or you will die. And Yahweh will be angry with the whole congregation. But let your brothers, the whole house of Israel, bewail those whom Yahweh has destroyed by fire. If we're not careful, we do things and we're not knowing what we're doing, right? So we can't let our hair get in our food. And why do we have the things we have, right? If we're not careful, we find out that a lot of our laws, a lot of the things we do, knowingly or willingly, comes from Scripture. When we see hair nets and people cooking and all of what's going on, right? They will not shave their heads, nor will they allow their hair to grow long. They will only keep the hair of their heads trimmed. See also Deuteronomy 22:5. Priests must not tear or serve with torn priestly garments. And Moshe said to Aaron and his sons, Eleazar, Issachar, do not let your hair grow long, nor tear your clothes, or you will die. And Yahweh will be angry with the whole congregation. But let your brothers, the whole house of Israel, bewail those whom Yahweh has destroyed by fire. Leviticus 21:10 also. Priests must not forsake their appointed office. You shall not go out from the entrance of the tent of meeting, or you shall die. For the anointing of oil Yahweh is upon you. So they did as Moses said. Priests must not become unclean for their nearest relatives. The high priest must not go near any dead body. The high priest must not become unclean for any dead body. The tribe of Levi shall have no part in the division of the land. Right? He shall not go near any dead body. He must not defile himself, not even for his father or his mother. So again, a lot of this goes to what you see here, right? You have the priest, which very few have to worry about, but the priest and what it says, right? And Moshe said to Aaron and his sons, Eleazar, do not let your hair grow long, nor tear your clothes, or you will die. And Yahweh will be angry for the whole congregation. But let your brothers, the whole house of Israel, bewail those whom Yahweh has destroyed by fire. Leviticus 10:6. We have to know the will and the ways of Yahweh. And it's different from this one to that one, correct? There's one law, but it identifies the Levite from the Nazarite. The tribe of Levi shall have no inheritance other than Yahweh's portion. Then Yahweh said to Aaron, you shall have no inheritance in their land, nor shall you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the children of Israel. So he's telling us right here what's going on and what they have, right? Yahweh is their inheritance. Yahweh is what they have. Now, if we're not careful, we want to take bits and portions out of this. It's what church identity is mastered almost. We want to take one piece out of this and say, well, look, why do you have long hair? And why does this one have long hair? Now look here and look at this. And we want to specify without knowing the whole thing. What happens when we hear only half of it? What happens when your spouse or your friend says something and you don't let them finish. Hey, I was on my way, and by the way, I didn't. And before we hear the whole conclusion, we get upset and we throw a fit without knowing the whole matter. If we're not careful, this is what Church Andy does and what most people do because they don't know the whole truth, right? They don't understand. They've been told, and it's amazing that a lot of churches preach mainly out of the Old Testament, right? A lot of their messages are directly from the Old Testament in the Torah, but then, if you're not careful, they twist it and turn it. Priests must not shave their heads. Wait a minute. So if we're not careful, what a lot of people come to in these situations, they say it's contradictory, right? They'll say, well, look, it says here not to have long hair, but then it says here not to shave your head. There's a difference, right? We all know there's a difference, but in spirituality, in assemblies, for some reason, we can't find the happy medium. We can with the world, we can with others, we can with certain things, but for some reason we can't read the Bible and comprehend what it says and do what it says and leave it at that, right? We got to go so far one way or the other. But when it tells us not to shave your beard, not to shave your head, it's exactly what it says. It's not hard to do, but people end up fighting and murmuring, complaining, and going on and on and on because they don't really take it to truth. They're really wanting to shave their heads and look like Egyptians and look like the world, right? So let's go on. The priests must not shave their heads bald in honor of the dead. Priests must not shave their heads, nor shave off the edges of their beards, nor make any cuttings of their bodies. So it's not really too much difference. It's just not to have long hair down to your heels, because why? Now think about this. If you're doing a sacrifice, you're outside, and doing a sacrifice, you're outside around the fire, and your hair's down to your ankles, your hair ain't going to be at your ankles very long, is it? That fire's going to burn it off. Now you see the difference between what they're doing, what they have, and normal people, but nowhere does it say to cut your hair off and make yourself bald unless in certain cases like leprosy, right? So we can't pick and choose what we want. Again, nor shave off the edges of the beards, nor make any cuttings in their bodies. You're the children of Yahweh your Father. You must not cut yourselves, nor shave the front of your heads for the dead. Now let's go on. Do not eat any unclean animal. Now this is not what you deem clean. It's not what you think is okay. It's what Scripture says to eat and what not to eat. Do not eat any unclean fish or seafood. Do not eat any unclean fowl. Right? These you shall regard as abominable among the birds. They shall not be eaten, for they are an abomination. The eagle, the vulture, the buzzard, and it goes on. And we must learn what them are. We can't just let someone tell us, oh, well, that cuckoo is actually this, or that cormorant is actually this, when it really means cormorant chicken. Look it up. Find it out. Because you're going to be held responsible. You're going to be judged according to this. So if you don't know what unclean fowl is, such as a turkey, you'll be judged for it. And if you don't listen and obey, then you'll be judged for that. Do not eat any unclean flying insect. We don't seem to have problems with this though, right? Do not eat any insects that creep on the ground. Do not eat worms found in fruit or produce. Do not eat any swarming insects. Do not eat any animal found already dead. Do not eat torn or mauled animal. And I would say that also go into not eating your food that is torn and mauled, right? And you are to be holy, set apart. Neither shall you eat meat of an animal torn by wild beasts. Cast it to the dogs. Do not eat any meat with blood still in it. Don't matter whether you like your steak or your bloody cheeseburgers or whatever. Don't eat the blood. In any event, the meat must be fully cooked. Drain the blood. No blood. Be sure that you do not eat the blood, because the blood is the life, and you must not eat the life with the meat. Deuteronomy 12:23. Do not touch the carcass of an unclean animal. The meat you shall not eat, and their carcasses you shall not touch. They are unclean to you. Well, can I pet a dog? Can I pet a pig? Yes, they're not dead. These are questions. They are. They're legit. Almost any question's a legit question, but if you don't know, then that's what you're come to, right? Well, I can't pet a pig. I can't touch a dog. If they're dead, no, they're abominable, and not to touch them. So can you play with a football made of pig skin? Do not eat blood. Do not eat the entrails and designated fat of clean animals. Then he shall offer from it these parts of an offering made by fire to Yahweh: the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat of the entrails, the 2 kidneys and the fat on them near the loins, and the fatty lobe attached to the liver above the kidneys. These he shall remove. So you can't eat these things, right? You can't have liver. You can't have these things. They are not for you. Not on the menu. Speak to the children of Israel, saying, you shall not eat any of the fat of the cattle or sheep or goats designated in the burnt offerings to Yahweh. Anyone who eats the fat of an animal from the offering made by fire to Yahweh must be cut off from his people. How many people are cut off and they pray and their prayers are not heard and they don't understand why they're cut off? Do not boil a young goat in its mother's milk, since it is a custom of the God worshippers. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of Yahweh. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Do not eat of it or offer sacrifices to the gods. Do not eat the meat of a bull that has been stoned to death for goring someone. Do not eat any bread in celebration of the feast until the Omer offering has been presented to the priest on the 15th of Abib. Do not eat any parched grain in celebration of the feast until the Omer offering has been presented to the priest on the 15th of Abib. Do not eat of the fresh green ears in celebration of the feast until the Omer offering has been presented to the priest on the 15th of Abib. It's amazing. He tells us how to eat, when to eat, and when to do it. Do not eat the fruit of the young fruit trees. For the first 3 years they bear fruit. Do not eat the produce from the planting of 2 kinds of seed. Now this is where we come into the hybrids and the things that we shouldn't be eating today. You must not plant 2 kinds of seed in your vineyard. If you do, not only the crops you plant, but also the fruit of the vineyards will be defiled. So how can you have a chicken hawk? How can you have a tomato crop? How can you have a lot of things that we're finding today? Because this is what they've done, right? And it's our duty to define what they are. And if we don't know, it's our duty to find someone to teach us and distinguish the clean and the unclean. Do not partake of drink offerings to other gods. Drunkenness of any sort is prohibited, and they shall say to the elders of the city, the son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a living righteously and is a drunkard. It says what it says, folks. Do not eat or drink anything on the Day of Atonement. Do not eat leavened bread during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Do not eat any leavened product during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We must do what it says. We can't just go and do what we want to do. We have to go with the instructions. And this, again, is just going over these. If we're not careful, that's all we do. We don't dig into it and find out. Any person who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. It is to you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict yourselves on the 9th of the moon at evening, at the setting of the sun, through the 10th of the moon at evening, at the setting of the sun. From evening until evening you shall celebrate your Sabbath. Now it's amazing that how this is worded. It is a Sabbath of rest, Leviticus 23, 29, 32. Need to write that down and go over it. Because with this, as many scriptures, there's so much in there that it's a year study, a 6-month study, a lifelong study. What is being said? It is a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict yourselves on the 9th of the moon at evening, at the setting of the sun, through the 10th of the moon at evening. At the setting of the sun from evening until evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. Now, if you go with the full moon, the Keshe moon, when do you see that moon? Right after the setting of the sun. And what does it say? At the setting of the sun, through the 10th of the moon at evening, at the setting of the sun from evening till evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. But it also says the moon in there, right? You shall afflict yourselves on the 9th of the moon at evening, at the setting of the sun. There's only way you can do that. When you see the sun go down, when you see the moon coming up, right? It's amazing that within scriptures, he is telling us how to keep these days. So we have to do it the way he says. Again, do not eat any leavened product during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Do not eat leavened bread with the Passover lamb. No unleavened bread is to be found in any of our possessions during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Unleavened bread must be eaten 7 days, and no leavened bread shall be found seen with you. Neither shall there be leaven seen with you in all your quarters. No leavening is to be found in any of our possessions during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, let's do Nazarites. A Nazarite must not drink wine or any beverage made from grapes. Again, different from the priest. Now, Yeshua was from the land of Nazarite, right? Yeshua of Nazareth. He shall abstain from wine or other fermented drink, and must not drink vinegar made from wine or from other fermented drink. He must not drink grape juice or eat grapes or raisins. A Nazarite must not eat fresh grapes. A Nazarite must not eat raisins. A Nazarite must not eat grape seeds. A Nazarite must not eat the skins of grapes. A Nazarite must not become unclean for the dead. Even his own father or mother, brother or sister dies, he must not make himself unclean for them, because he has separation to Yahweh on his head. A Nazarite must not go near the dead body. Throughout the period of his separation to Yahweh, he must not go near a dead body. A Nazarite must not shave his hair during the time of separation. Do not harvest the corners of the field, they are for the poor. Do not gather the gleanings of the field, they are for the poor. Do not gather all the olives from the trees, of the remaining are for the poor. It's amazing, we got people starving, we have homeless, we have all these things, and it's right here, how to cure it, how to fix it, how to make it not. But yet, we don't do it, do we? Do not gather all the grapes from the vineyard, the remaining are for the poor. Do not return to pick up forgotten sheep from the field, for it is for the poor. Do not plant a field with 2 kinds of seed. Do not plant a vineyard with 2 kinds of seed. Do not work with 2 different species of animals yoked together. You must not plow with an ox and a donkey together. Do not muzzle the ox that treads the grain. Do not sow the fields of the 7th year. Do not prune your vineyard or trees in the 7th year. Do not reap your harvest in the 7th year. Do not gather the grapes of the unintended vines in the 7th year. Isn't it amazing, instead of us pulling over and trying to give people money that's begging for things and saying they're hungry, they could go out to these fields, they could go to the fruit trees, they could go to these places and freely be eating. So who has brought this upon ourselves? Do not sow the fields of the Jubilee year. Do not reap the harvest in the Jubilee year. That 50th year shall be a Jubilee to you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows voluntarily, neither the grapes or your unintended vines. Do not gather the grapes of unintended vines in the Jubilee year. The land must not be sold permanently. The land must not be sold permanently, because the land is mine, and you were but strangers and my tenants. Do not sell the land allotted to the priests and Levites. Do not neglect the priests and the Levites. Do not demand repayment of a loan after the 7th year. Do not refuse to lend the poor, because the 7th year is approaching. Right? How many people, oh no, I'm not going to lend to them because the 7th year, they'll get free money. Do not harden your heart to the poor. If there is a poor brother living within the city, in the land Yahweh your Father has given you, you must not harden your heart, nor be tight-fisted toward your poor brother. Do not send a Hebrew slave away empty-handed when he finishes his period of service. And when he is released from you, you must not let him go away empty-handed. Do not demand interest on a loan to a brother. Do not lend to a brother with interest. Do not borrow from a brother with interest. You must not charge interest to your brother, interest on money, food, or anything else that may earn interest. You may charge interest to a foreigner, but to your brother you must not charge interest, so that Yahweh your Father may bless you in all that you set your hand to do in the land you're entering to possess. Again, we want to talk about blessings and prosperity. What does it say? Not to lend and charge them money, interest, right? Do not participate in a loan to a brother with interest. Do not withhold the wages of a hired man beyond the agreed time. Do not take security on a loan by force. When you make a loan of any kind to your brother, do not go into his house to get what he is offering as security. You shall stand outside and let the man bring the security out to you. Do not keep a poor man's security on a loan when he needs it. If the man is poor, you must not hold his cloak overnight. You must in this case return his cloak to him before the sun goes down, so he may sleep in his own garment. Then he will bless you, and it shall be accounted to you as righteousness in front of Yahweh your Father. Imagine that. Everybody's looking for righteousness and wanting to live right, and look what it says right there to do, and it be counted to you as righteousness. Oh no, brother, everybody's filthy rag righteousness. Not really, according to Scripture, is it? Do not take any security on a loan from a widow. Wait a minute. How many churches wants the widow's money? See, there's so many sermons and teachings upon almost every one of these that we could go through. You're counted as righteousness. Your righteousness is what? You're going to charge interest. You're going to get over. You're going to make money. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You're going to do all kinds of things with this. Right? You're going to try to make money out of these. But if we're not careful, we're doing it wrong. That's why our righteousness are as filthy rags. But when we do it His way, it's counted to us as righteousness. Do not take security on loan from a widow. You must not pervert the justice due to the stranger or the fatherless, nor shall you take the cloak of the widow as security. Deuteronomy 24:17. Do not take a man's livelihood as security on a loan. Do not take an upper millstone or a lower millstone as security for a debt, because that would be taking a man's living as security. Do not kidnap anyone. Do not steal. Do not rob by violence. Do not remove a landmark or the altar of boundaries. We see a lot of this happens a lot of times. Do not defraud anyone. You shall not defraud your brother, nor rob him. Do not hold back the wages of a hired man overnight. Leviticus 19:13. Do not deal falsely with anyone. You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie one to another. Do not vow falsely regarding another man's property. You shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to one another. If a person sins and commits a trespass against Yahweh by lying to his brother about what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or if he has deceived and extorted from his brother. We all know what that leads to, right? Leads to terrible things. Do not oppress one another in business. And if you sell anything to your brother or buy from your brother's hand, you shall not oppress one another. Not the world's ways, right? The world says, oh, buy it, sell it, and make $1. Do not mistreat a stranger. You shall neither mistreat nor oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Do not oppress a stranger in business. You shall neither mistreat nor oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Well, that's where we get, don't forget where you came from, right? Do not return a slave who has fled from God worship. Do not oppress or take advantage of a slave who has fled from God worship. He may live among you whether he chooses in your cities or where it seems best to him. You must not oppress him, because when you oppress him, he's going to go back to what? What he knows. Do not take advantage of widows or orphans. You shall not take advantage of any widow or orphan. Exodus 22:22. Do not treat a brother as a forced slave with no hope for redemption. Leviticus 25:39. If one of your brothers becomes poor among you and sells himself to you, do not make him work as a slave. Do not sell a brother as a slave to strangers. Sounds like Jacob, right? What'd they do? What was they doing wrong? We have to understand why the scriptures is showing us what it's showing. Because the children of Israel are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They must not be sold as slaves. So we are Yahweh's. Do not treat a slave ruthlessly. Do not allow a foreigner to mistreat a slave. Do not sell a maidservant to strangers. Do not deprive a wife or family member of food, clothing, or their own shelter. Let's back up one. If she does not please her owner who has betrothed her to herself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to strangers, because he has broken faith with her. Now, next one. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. Do not sell a female captive as a forced slave. Do not treat a female captive as a forced slave. Deuteronomy 21:14. But if you are not pleased with her, let her go wherever she desires. But you certainly shall not sell her for money, nor treat her like a slave, because you have humbled her. Let's go on. 265. Do not covet another person's possessions. Exodus 20:17. You shall not covet, lust after your brother's house. You shall not covet your brother's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that belongs to your brother. Again, another worldly thing. You're wanting what the Joneses have. You want their car. You want their house. You want his wife. Exactly what it says not to do. Do not covet the possessions of God worshippers. You must burn the images of their gods in fire. You must not covet, lust after the silver or gold that covers them, nor take it for yourselves, or you will be ensnared and entrapped by it, for it is abomination to Yahweh your Father. Again, it's not what you think, it's what Yahweh says. A hired worker must not harvest a brother's grain for himself. A hired worker must not take more produce than he can eat. When you enter into your brother's vineyard, you may eat all the grapes you please, but you must not put any in any container. Why? Because you know what's going to happen, right? You're going to try to buy it and sell it and trade it and get more money because of greed if you're not careful. Do not fail to return a lost article to its owner. You shall not see your brother's ox or sheep straying away and ignore it. Be sure to take it back to your brother. It is your brother's problem. It is your problem. Do not refuse to help a man or an animal which is collapsing under its burden. Do not use dishonest weights and measures. Do not possess inaccurate weights and measures. Do not have two different weights in your bag, one light and one heavy. Do not have two different measurings in your house, one small and one large. Oh, I see this guy. No, he's going to pay big money. I'm going to make him pay the ultimate penny. But that guy there is poor. he's just going to have to pay a penny. Judgment and conduct of judges. A judge must not pervert justice by rendering his own opinion. He must judge according to Yahweh's laws. Wow. We should have that in the courts. A judge must not accept bribes. Have that in the courts. A judge must not show partiality to the rich. Have that in the courts. A judge must not be afraid to give righteous judgment. You must not show partiality in judgment. You shall listen to the small man as well as the mighty man, and you must not be afraid in any man's presence. For the judgment you render is the judgment of Yahweh. Bring to me any case too hard for you, and I will hear it. So who's doing the judgment? So why should we have righteous judges? Why should we have men of Yahweh? A judge must not show partiality to the poor. A judge must not deny justice to the poor in the lawsuit. Well, you're too poor, you can't do anything. You just have to accept what they give to you. A judge must not show pity to the guilty. A judge must not pervert the justice due to a stranger, the fatherless. However, if someone hates his brother and lies in wait for him when attacks and kills him, and then flees to one of these cities, the elders of the city he came from shall send for him, bring him back to the city of refuge, and hand him over to the blood avenger to die. You must not show pity to him. You must purge from Israel the guilt of the shedding of innocent blood, so that it may go well with you. You must show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Again, we don't just run away to other cities and get away with it. Do not spread a false report. Exodus 23:1. You shall not spread a false report. Do not help an evil man by being an unrighteous witness. We're not careful. Oh yeah, I was there. I seen it all. I seen the wreck. You didn't see anything. You just showed up, right? Do not fail to report sin or testify in an investigation. Leviticus 5:1. If a person sins because he does not speak up when he hears a public charge to testify regarding something he has seen or knows about, he will be held responsible. Wow, imagine that. I just ain't going to say anything. Ain't my business. Held responsible. Counted as sin. Do not follow the crowd in doing evil. Exodus 23:2. Do not follow the crowd in doing evil when you give testimony in a lawsuit. Do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. Just like we've seen with Yeshua, right? Give us Barabbas, they said. Did we hear of anybody who said, give us Yeshua? The crowd. Do not appoint a judge, one who is ignorant of the laws of Yahweh. Wow. Do not give false testimony in a lawsuit or investigation. You shall not bear false testimony against your brother. I was there. I seen it. The judges must not accept false testimony in a case. If a false witness rises against any man to accuse him of any wrongdoing, then both men involved in the controversy must stand in front of Yahweh, in front of the priests and the judges who officiate at the time. Whole different world, right? Do not judge a person for the actions of either their parents or their children. The father shall not be put to death because of their children, nor shall the children be put to death because of their parents. A person must be put to death because of his own sin. Oh, my mommy and my daddy, and they made me do it. Nope. Oh, nope. Do not judge a matter on the testimony of one witness. One witness is not enough to convict a man accused of any crime or offense that he may be committed. Only by mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses may the matter be established. Do not murder. Well, know this one, right? We should. You shall not murder. Exodus 20:13. The judges must not condemn an innocent man or a righteous person. Keep yourself far from a false matter, and do not put an innocent or righteous person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Judges need to know these things, don't they? Imagine all the people went to jail and did things and they was innocent. Do not judge a matter until it has been fully investigated. Do not put a murderer to death before the judges hear his case. Oh, he did it, we know it. Nope. Numbers 35 and 12. They shall be cities of refuge from the blood avenger, so that a person accused of murder may not die before he stands in judgment in front of the congregation. No lynch mobs. Did he do it or not? Do not fail to carry out the sentence of judgment. Once you figured it out, what do? According to the law they teach you, you shall do. And according to the decisions they give you, you shall do. You must not turn aside to the right hand nor to the left from the sentence they pronounce for you. The man who acts presumptuously and shows contempt for the priest who stands to minister in front of Yahweh, your father, or the judge, that man must be put to death. In this way you will purge the evil from Israel. Imagine that. Why are preachers not judges then? Oh. Do not punish the innocent victim of a crime. Deuteronomy 22 and 26. You must do nothing to the young woman. She has committed no sin deserving the death. This is the same example as when someone attacks and murders his brothers. Do not accept ransom from one who willingly murdered. He must surely be put to death. Do not accept ransom from the one who killed accidentally. He must remain in the city of refuge. Do not endanger anyone's life. You shall not go about talebearing or slandering among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your brother's life. I am Yahweh. Oh, go ahead. Let's stand on the edge of the building. Oh, let's go play silly games and get on TikTok and YouTube. Do not neglect to protect against hazards. When you build a new house, then you must make a parapet for your roof, so you may not bring the guilt of bloodshed upon your house if anyone falls from it. You're supposed to put something around your roofing that people don't just fall off of. Do not mislead another person by giving unlawful advice. Do not administer more punishment than law allows. If the guilty man deserves to be beaten, the judge shall make him lie down and have him whipped in his presence with the number of lashes his crime deserves. But he must not give him more than 40 lashes. If he is whipped more than that, your brother will be degraded in your sight. Do not go about talebearing or slandering about anyone. You should not go about talebearing or slandering among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your brother's life. I am Yahweh. Do not bear hatred for anyone. Leviticus 19:17. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. Rebuke your brother or your sister frankly, so you will not share in his or her guilt. Oh, but you can't do that to me. I have a husband. You can't tell me. I can read my Bible. Rebuke your brother or sister frankly, so you will not share in his or her guilt. But you don't hate them. You just rebuke them. You're not sharing anyone's guilt by correcting sin. You should not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. Rebuke your brother or sister frankly, so you will not share in his or her guilt. So if you let them continue to do something that's wrong, then it's counted to you as guilt and sin, right? Do not seek revenge against your neighbor. Do not seek revenge, Leviticus 19:18, nor bear a grudge against one of your own people. But you shall love your brother or your sister as yourself. I am Yahweh. Do not bear a grudge against your neighbor. Do not take the mother when taking the young birds. Do not shave a diseased area of skin. Do not remove the signs of leprosy. Do not neglect to inform the priest when a dead body is found. Do not permit a witch to live. Boy, a lot of TV shows got a problem with that, huh? Do not force a bridegroom to perform foreign or military service during the first year of his marriage. Do not rebel against the teaching of Yahweh's anointed servants. Deuteronomy 17:11. According to the law they teach you, you shall do, and according to the decisions they give you, you shall do. You must not turn aside to the right hand nor to the left from the sentence they pronounce for you. Oh, but I can read my... What does it say? I can read my Bible. What did it say? Deuteronomy 17. Maybe we need to put them on some cards and hand them around to these Torah observant people. Do not add to any of Yahweh's laws. You shall not add to the word which I command you, nor shall you take anything from it, so that you may keep the laws of Yahweh, your Father, which I command you. Deuteronomy 4:2. Right? We must do what he says. Do not take away from any of Yahweh's laws. Do not curse, revile, or rebel against Yahweh's appointed judges. Do not blaspheme Yahweh, and do not revile your judges, nor curse the ruler of your people. So who is supposed to be the ruler, the judge, and everything? Wow, imagine that. What are you talking about? Well, look at what Moshe did. And who did he appoint? When it came so many people and so many times, he appointed 70 elders, right? Do not curse, revile, or rebel against authority placed by Yahweh. Do not curse the deaf. Do not curse the parents or teachers. And he who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Do not strike or become violent with parents or teachers. Exodus 21:15. Do not work on the Sabbath. But the Sabbath day, the seventh day, is the Sabbath of Yahweh, your heavenly Father. In it you shall do no work. You, nor your wife, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your maidservant, nor your manservant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger who dwells within your gates. You can't even have somebody within your gates doing any work. Exodus 31:15. For 6 days work shall be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, holy, set apart to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. See also Leviticus 23 and Deuteronomy 5:12-14. Do not conduct your own business or pleasure on the Sabbath. Do not kindle the fire on the Sabbath, which is anger. Do not work on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Do not work on the seventh day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Do not work on the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, Shavuot. Do not work on the Feast of Trumpets, Leviticus 23:21. And you shall proclaim on that day that it be a holy convocation to you. Sabbath, Sabbath. The Feast of Weeks, the Feast of First Fruits. You shall do no regular work on it. It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. Do not work on the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Do not work on the last great day. Leviticus 23:36. But for 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. On the 8th day you shall have a set apart convocation, the last great day, and shall offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. It is the closing gathering of Yahweh's sacred year, and you shall do no customary work upon it. It is what? The closing sacrifice, the closing of the year, right? Is the closing gathering of Yahweh's sacred year. So when's the new year again? Do not work on the Day of Atonement, Leviticus 23:28. Sinful relations. We're going to do one more page here and then we'll call it. A man must not have sexual relations with his mother. A man must not have sexual relations with his father's wife. A man must not have sexual relations with his sister. A man must not have sexual relations with his half-sister. A man must not have sexual relations with his son's daughter. A man must not have sexual relations with his daughter's daughter. A man must not have sexual relations with his daughter. A man must not marry a woman and her daughter. A man must not marry a woman and her son's daughter. A man must not marry a woman and her daughter's daughter. A man must not have sexual relations with his father's sister. Now, where do you think we got all these laws? A man must not have sexual relations with his mother's sister. A man must not have sexual relations with his father's brother's wife. A man must not have sexual relations with his daughter-in-law. A man must not have sexual relations with his brother's wife. Now, most of us don't have a problem with these, do we? It's all the other things that we want to manipulate, and only few people, which there are, that want to try and say, well, I can do this the way I want to. But most of us agree with this, right? A man must not have sexual relations with one wife in the dwelling of another. A man must not approach a menstruous woman for sexual relations or any other way to be unclean. You must not marry a woman in addition to her sister, become a rival with her, having sexual relations with second sister wife, while the other dwelling is which in the first sister is living. So again, we have to go over and see what it says, because if we're not careful, we make up our own thing here. You must not marry a woman in addition to her sister, to be a rival to her, having sexual relations with a second sister while in the dwelling in which the first sister is living. So basically, you can't marry the sister just because you wanted to make them fight against each other, right? And we can see this happen, and we see it in movies. Well, I'm better than my sister. I can cook better than my sister. I can love you more than my sister. I can do. And what happens? Okay. And it's exactly what it says not to do. A man must not approach a menstruous woman for sexual relations or for any way become unclean by her. Do not commit adultery. Moreover, you should not have sexual relations with your neighbor's wife to defile yourself along with her. A man must not have sexual relations with an animal. A woman must not have sexual relations with an animal. A lot of these, again, we all can agree upon, and we all pretty much know not to do these things. So why would we do them anyway? Right? Let's go ahead and finish this one out. We'll just stop right there. How's that? We went far enough, I think. A man must not have sexual relations with another man. You shall not have sexual relations with a man as with a woman. It is an abomination. No matter what we like, what we think love is love, and we hear all these things today, we can't do what we want to do. We have to go with what so saith Yahweh. Whether we think we love it, we think we know it, whatever we think, it doesn't matter. It's what Yahweh says, right? If we can all stand on what so saith Yahweh, His word says this, I can read it, I can print it, I can write it down, I can see it for myself. We should all agree upon these things. But sadly, the world has put judges in places that's not really judges, and done things, as we see more and more and more, that are not correct and are not righteous and not even trying to live the way of Yahweh. So therefore we get a corrupted, terrible, miserable world that half the people don't have a smile, and you can't even see it anymore because of what they put on their faces, right? They're made up like clowns. They're made up, you don't even know the real true person because they have masks on in one way or another, right? It's their happy face. It's this. They're not nothing like what they are at home. So I hope this has helped you. I hope it's edified. Until next time, may Yahweh bless you. May His countenance shine upon you, and may He grant you shalom. Shalom, everybody, and thank you very, very much for listening and for watching. May Yahweh bless you. Have a great and wondrous day or evening. Shalom.